Monica, 4 years old, woke up one morning to find her mother still asleep. For her, this was very unusual as her mother always woke up before her. And when she tried to wake her mother, she noticed nothing worked. As the hours ticked by and her mother was still asleep, Monica started to feel something could be wrong. So, she called the only number she knew to remember. 911, what's your emergency? This was the only number she knew to call because her mother had told her to memorize it for emergencies. Tears welled up in her eyes as she paused before she answered. My mommy has been asleep all day, Monica said. Her heart was pounding in her chest as she talked to the operator. The 911 operator was shocked to hear such a small child on the other side of the line. He quickly got an image of the situation and sent police and an ambulance to her address. But when the police arrived at the apartment building, getting inside seemed to be harder than they thought. Time was ticking, and everyone knew this. They knew there was only one thing they could do to get inside. But when the officers were finally able to enter the house, they were shocked by what they saw. But what shocked the officers? What was going on with Monica, mother? And will she get better? It was just the two of them, Monica, who was only 4 years old, and her mother, Maria. Sophie's father had never been in the picture. He'd left them as soon as Maria told him the news about her pregnancy. But he wasn't missed. Maria had always made sure that Monica was cared for. Mornings were their favorite time of the day. They would wake up, eat breakfast together, and Maria would play music and dance in the kitchen with her daughter. Then, Monica would go to daycare, and Maria would go to work. But today was different, and Monica could sense it from the start. As soon as Monica woke up, she felt something was different about her mother. She wasn't her happy self and could barely open her eyes. Usually, Maria would turn off the alarm clock, but she hadn't moved an inch since it went off. So, Monica got up to turn it off. Monica stood next to her mother's bedside and stared at her. She must be very tired, Monica thought. She was too young to understand something could be terribly wrong. So, Monica took it upon herself to get dressed and go to the living room, expecting her mother to follow her shortly, but she never did. Time ticked by, and Monica's mother was still sound asleep in bed. Monica had turned on the TV and watched her usual morning show. But her tummy eventually started growling. Why wasn't her mother up and dancing in the kitchen? So she decided to check up on her one more time. Monica slowly opened the door to her mother's bedroom. "Mom?" she asked worriedly. "Mom, are you awake yet?" "I'm hungry." But there came no response. She carefully walked over to the bed and climbed on top. "Mommy," she said again while shaking her mother's shoulders. She now began to feel really worried. Her mother did not respond. Monica's heart began to race. Panic rose in her little body, and tears started to well up in her eyes. She felt helpless and didn't know what to do. But by now, she knew something could be very wrong. Monica was all alone and didn't know what to do. Monica tried to wake her mother up one more time by shouting her name. And to her surprise, her mother let out a little faint moan. Why won't she wake up? Monica thought. But then she remembered something her mother had taught her. Something that could potentially save her mother's life. Her mother had told her about a number she could call if something were wrong. She had no idea who this person was, but that didn't matter at that moment. She ran downstairs and searched for her mother's phone. She looked on the table, in her mother's purse, and in her jacket, but she couldn't find it. Finally, Monica found the phone on the side table next to the couch. She quickly ran upstairs and unlocked the phone by holding it in front of her mother's face. She had seen her mother do that many times. She had to think very hard to remember the number, but eventually figured it out. "911. She dialed with trembling fingers. She held the phone by her ear and worryingly looked at her mother. "Don't worry, Mommy," she said. "I will get you some help." 911, "What's your emergency?" a man asked her. My mommy has been asleep all day," she said. The man on the other line seemed to be surprised by Monica's voice. "Hello, what's your name, darling?" he asked her kindly. "Monica," Monica said confidently. "Can you come and help me? You said your mommy is asleep all day? Is your daddy around, Monica?" the man asked, not reacting to Monica's question. "No," Monica said. "It's just my mommy and me. But she never woke up this morning." "All right, Monica, I need you to stay on the line, okay?" the operator said. "Where is your mommy now?" "She's in bed in her room." "Will you send the police and an ambulance?" "I'm still in my pajama." "Yes, Monica, but I have a few more questions, okay?" The operator tried to talk as loud and clear as he could. This was very important because children are usually easily distracted, so he had to do his best to get Monica to stay on the line. But luckily, Monica knew her mother could be in danger. So, she took this situation very seriously. "All right, Monica. This is a very important question. I need to know where you live," so the police will find you," the operator said. Monica started to feel panicked again. She didn't know where she lived. But she suddenly remembered her mother had kept a note somewhere with their address on it. "Por favor, espera un minuto," dice Monica. "Eu volto já." Espera, mon dash a operadora tentu, mas ela já tinha ido embora. Monica caiu a porta de frente e tirou o bilhete de parede. Então, ela caiu de volta para o quarto de suame. "I'm back," she said happily. "And I have the note." Monica told the operator her address and waited. She stayed on the line with the operator the whole time and answered all his questions. He asked her if her mother was hurt, if she was breathing, and other important questions. But it was taking a very long time for the ambulance to arrive. She was only 4 years old, so Monica had no track of time. But even she could sense that the ambulance should have been here by now, but she didn't even hear the sirens yet. She was still by her mother's side and told her reassuring words, not knowing if her mother could hear her or not. Her mother was still breathing, but it didn't look good. She took long pauses between breaths, and when Monica placed her hand on her mother's forehead, as her mother always did to her when she was feeling ill, she could feel her mother burning up. But then, she finally heard something. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Monica heard the sirens. She ran to the living room to wait for them to arrive. She could hear heavy footsteps running up the stair of their apartment building and stopping in front of their door. "Monica," one of the men yelled. "I'm in here," she answered. Monica's heart was pounding in her chest. She had never experienced something like this before. "Monica, we need you to open the door for us," someone yelled from the other side of the door. But that wasn't as easy as they thought. Monica was way too small to reach the door handle. She tried to stand on her toes to reach the handle, but she could only touch it with her fingertips. "I can't reach it," Monica said. But she wasn't about to give up. She knew she had to open the door for those men. Otherwise, they could never help her mother. Monica took a step backward and scanned the room. There had to be something she could use to stand on. But, since Monica was still so small, she couldn't see much. Then, she remembered where her mother kept the pots and pans. She might be able to stand on one of those to reach the handle. She quickly ran to the kitchen and opened all the cupboards she could reach. Finally, she opened the cupboard with the pots and pans, but when she tried to lift one up, it was way too heavy. The metal slipped out of Monica's little hands, and she dropped the pan on the floor. She had to think of something else. The men were counting on her. Monica shook off her frustration and searched for something else. She ran through the living room and frantically searched for an object she could stand on. And finally, When she stood on her tippy toes to look on the table, she found something. There was a little black box in the middle of the dining table. So, Monica pulled out a chair, climbed on top, and carefully climbed onto the table. She pushed the box off the table and climbed down herself. The box was made of cardboard and filled with papers, so it was light enough for Monica to carry to the door. But when she put the box in front of the door, stepped on, and tried to reach the handle, she was once again struck with disappointment. She was still too small. "I can't reach," Monica said with a trembling voice. There had to be something she could use, she thought. And suddenly, it dawned on her. A chair. Of course. Why didn't she think of that before? Monica quickly ran back to the table and grabbed a chair. But it was way too heavy for her to lift up. So, she started to tug the chair toward the door. It was a slow process, but little by little, she got closer to the door. Monica felt the adrenaline race through her body. She was almost there. Her hard work wouldn't be for nothing. But then, something happened. The chair got caught on by a rug and wouldn't move anymore. Monica tugged a bit harder, and the chair began to move again, but this time, it wasn't in a good way. Because the chair began to tilt, Monica tripped. She fell on the ground face first and couldn't turn around fast enough to see that the chair was slowly leaning her way. And before she knew it, the chair fell on top of her. Monica screamed as the hard wooden chair trapped her on the ground. Luckily, she wasn't hurt, but she couldn't get up anymore. The chair was too heavy for her to get off. She tried to get on her hands and knees and push the chair up with her back, but she couldn't. "Monica? Are you okay?" the man asked her. They could hear the rumbling noises, and Monica screamed through the door. A policia sabia o que fazer a seguir. Não se preocupe, Monica. Estaremos com você em alguns minutos. Dos policiais gritou atrás da porta. Mas Monica não pôde deixar de entrar em pânico. How were the officers going to enter her house if the door was locked? But then, she heard something. She heard the police officers mumbling outside of the door, and it almost sounded like a few of them were walking down the stairs again. Monica Little Mind instantly feared they had given up and were about to leave her, but of course, that was far from true. "Please don't leave me," she cried. "We're just grabbing a few supplies from downstairs. Hold on tight, and don't be scared. You will hear a loud bang in a couple of seconds." Monica listened carefully and tried to stay as calm as possible. But her heart was pounding in her chest. She wondered what the police were going to do. She couldn't think of a way they could get in, without her opening the door for them. The rumbling and murmuring noises filled Monica's head as she tried to understand what they were saying. "All right, Monica, a second officer suddenly said, "Cover your ears." Monica closed her eyes and put her hands over her ears. She had no idea what was going to happen next, but trusted the officers. She took a few deep breaths, and suddenly, the officers started counting down from 3 to 1. What were they going to do? Monica thought. 3, 2, 1. A loud blow echoed through the living room. Monica felt the floor shake a little. Her body tensed up as she felt very frightened. After that, it stayed quiet for a few seconds. But when she was just about to lift her hands off her ears when another blow pounced through the apartment. She heard a third blow and could see the front door move a little. Then, she suddenly realized what they were trying to do. They were trying to break down the door with something. A fourth blow followed soon after, and Monica could now see splitters flying off the door. The floor shook again. Monica wanted to see what they were trying to do, but she was too scared to lift her hands off her ears. What if they banged again, just as her ears were uncovered? She thought. So, she carefully opened only one eye instead and looked at the door. Monica quickly closed her eyes again and waited for it all to be over. Many more loud blows to the door followed. It almost felt like it would never stop. Monica couldn't help but feel scared. She quietly cried as she waited for the door to fall down. But it never did. Suddenly, the blows stopped. Monica opened her eyes, but was worried to see the door was still in its place. Why did they stop? She thought. Well, breaking the door down didn't seem to work, so the police had to think of something else they could do. But Monica was losing her patience. Monica could hear the police speak to each other, but it didn't sound good. They were mumbling to each other and occasionally yelled something down the stairs. But it wasn't enough anymore. Monica had lost her trust in the police and felt like she was on her own once again. She heard rumbling noises, and they were clearly trying lots of things to get inside. But it was taking way too long for Monica. So, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She was done being trapped on the floor and wanted to help her mother. So, she carefully looked around her. Suddenly, Monica noticed that the legs of the chair were still on the rug that it tripped over. She reached with her arm to see if she could get her fingers in between the chair and the carpet, and to her surprise, it worked. Monica took a deep breath because she knew the next part would be very difficult. Monica had to muster up all her strength to push the leg away. It hadn't worked before, but she didn't want to give up. She figured the chair only had to move a small part for her to be able to crawl away. So she counted down in her head and gave the chair one big push. To Monica's surprise, the chair started to move and Monica was finally able to drag herself away. She cheered up and was so lenient with herself for moving on. She immediately ran to her mother to tell her what she had accomplished, but was painfully reminded that she was still sleeping. Monica sighed. Nothing about this day had gone as she had planned. Her tummy was rumbling from hunger, her mother's situation hadn't improved, and the police were still trying to get inside the apartment. A tear rolled down Monica's cheek as she stroked her mother's arm. "Please hold on, Mommy. I need you." Then, all of a sudden, Monica heard a loud bang. She ran to the living room to see if the police were finally able to come inside, and they were. The door of the apartment lay flat on the ground, and within seconds, their apartment was filled with police officers and paramedics. Monica ran into the arms of one of the officers and hugged him tightly. When he put her down again, she grabbed him by the hand and quickly led him to her mother. He immediately called for the paramedics to come into the room, and they checked her pulse. But something worried Monica. None of them seemed happy. The officers looked around them with shocked looks on their faces, and the paramedics hurried her mother onto a stretcher. Monica didn't understand why everyone seemed to be in such a hurry to get out of this room. But she would later find out the truth. She knew, or at least hoped, her mother would be well cared for. But she still wondered why the police were so shocked when they entered their house. She knew she had made a bit of a mess while trying to open the door, but it wasn't that bad, was it? She was excited to be in an ambulance for the first time, but the sight of her mother scared her. But little did she know it wasn't about the mess at all. There was something else inside their apartment that explained everything, but Monica was too young to understand. She had to wait for her mother to wake up, and only then would the police explain everything as well as they could. At the hospital, they hooked Monica's mother onto various machines, which looked terrifying to Monica. She had no idea what the machines were for, and no one wanted to tell her. Provavelmente porque ela não entenderia, mas ainda assim. Minha mãe vai ficar bem, ela pergunta preocupada a uma enfermeira. Mas ela apenas responde com sorriso incerto. Luckily, Monica's grandmother arrived soon after. The police had contacted her about what had happened and asked her to come. She was just about to start cooking dinner, but immediately rushed over when she heard about her daughter's situation. She wouldn't let her granddaughter go through this all by herself. Monica was ecstatic to see a familiar face after such a hectic day. She ran to her grandmother, snuggled up in her arms, and told her everything. It didn't seem to get any better with Maria for a while, but after a few hours, she slowly began to wake up. Maria moved her head from side to side and slowly opened her eyes. She was very confused about what had happened and didn't realize she was in a hospital at first. Her eyes widened as she looked around the room. "Where am I?" she frightfully asked. But she calmed down as soon as she saw Monica. Monica told her proudly how brave she had been all day and that she was the one who had called 911. Maria was still very confused, but she was glad to see her daughter was okay. While she talked to her daughter, Maria's mother quickly got up and called for a nurse to come to the room. Shortly after Maria woke up, police entered her room. They began to ask her what had happened, but Maria had no idea. She went to bed feeling a bit dizzy, but the rest was all very blurry. The officers looked very serious and wrote everything down. But then, they finally explained everything. When the officers were finally able to get inside the apartment, they immediately noticed something. There was a specific smell lingering around, but they didn't connect it to anything yet. But as soon as they entered Maria's bedroom, they were shocked to realize the smell had worsened and probably had come from there. They immediately investigated the situation and found mold growing behind the bed, behind the closet, and in some corners of the ceiling. The mold was slowly spreading throughout the house and was probably the reason why Maria was so sick and drowsy. O mofo era toxico e, esi Monica neo tivesse legado para o 911, poderia ter acabado mal para os dois. Maria was so proud of her daughter for handling the situation so well. She felt stupid for not noticing the mold sooner. Monica was also checked for any symptoms, but luckily for her, she was perfectly healthy. The doctors don't know why the mold only infected Maria and not Monica, but they were happy it didn't. As soon as Maria started to feel better, she called the concierge of the building to explain the situation. There was no way they would go back there if there were still mold inside. The concierge was shocked to hear something like this had happened, and immediately called the owner of the building. The owner couldn't believe his ears and immediately called for the other apartments to be checked. Something like black mold is very dangerous and shouldn't be taken lightly. He rushed over to the building to assist with the checkups and offered Maria a temporary stay until their apartment was cleaned. It turned out that there was a big mold outbreak in the building, and every apartment had to be cleaned. It was a big operation that took several weeks to be finished. Everyone in the building was shocked that this had happened and sent their good wishes to Maria and Monica. The mold was discovered just in time. If it had grown any longer without being discovered, the whole building would have been infected. Even though Maria ended up being hospitalized, she was glad that she was the one who got sick. Because of her, the mold was discovered, and other people were saved from the mold. Monica was forever changed after this eventful day. but in a positive way. She felt more confident in who she was and more independent as well. She was very proud that she had saved her mother. The mold never returned to their apartment, and Monica grew up to become a paramedic herself and continued to save lives. The end.